Okay, so I would like to welcome Lukáš, CEO of Poetizer, and as part of this CodeNOW Talks, I would like to talk to you about a relationship with us and with CodeNOW. What's your experience with the product, with the team, and in general how the business is going?
Right.
Because we both are in the startup area, so I guess that we are sharing some common experiences. So let's talk about that.
Right.
So tell us something about Poetizer and what was the business about.
Right. Well, the idea is to look at the area of self-publishing, which is a really big area in the world. Basically, it's a huge industry. There is $142 billion in the market every year. And it was just surprising to me how little has been done to innovate the industry as such. Basically, it's all the same old-fashioned. You want to get your book printed, you have to talk to the publisher, they refuse you. And if they do publish you, you get very little chance of actually getting famous or promoted because you're unknown to them and they don't give put much money into the marketing efforts. And if you want to self-publish, then you can go ahead. But there are all these obstacles you have to face. Financially, it costs $5,000 to $15,000 to self-publish. You have to be expert in marketing, PR. You have to know how to create your book. You have to talk to graphics people, and it's basically something that very, very few of us get to do. And yet, there are not that many surveys, but there is one survey from the States, United States, that says that 81% of Americans would want to publish a book if it were easy. So it's a big market. If you look at the world as such, book talk is one of the most used hashtags on TikTok. I think it was 188 billion the last time I checked the usage of the hashtag. So even the young generation is pretty much savvy into like reading books and publishing books. But the problem remains the same, how to get my book printed, how do I go about it? So we're basically making all this very easy. Just in a few clicks in your mobile, you can get your book already done. It's all configured. It's on Marketplace. Just go directly to the printers. And you don't have to like talk to the graphic people. There are not all these like things you have to usually do that take months and lots of money for you before you want to publish a book or make money out of it. We're also addressing the possibility that you can set your own margin as an author, which is great because otherwise, like you have no control over how much you get from your own books, and it's at the same time an effort to make it all a bit more green, because the way how publishing works, you can see plenty of books on the bookshelves here that are most likely not read for many decades, and fortunately they're not thrown out. They usually get thrown out and burned. So there is a massive overload of printed books, printed usually in cheap places like China and other places. Then they're getting shipped all over the world, and then roughly half or even more than half of the books don't get sold, and they just end up on landfills. So we're also addressing this issue in having the print only on demand. So whenever you create your book or someone buys it from a platform, it goes only after the purchase to the nearest printer, in the future now to a printer that is close to you, and it gets shipped to you. So it gets published, printed only once a purchase is made. So we eliminate waste. There is no book printed just like for fun's sake. So that's us. And of course, one of the first areas we wanted to enter was poetry. It's not meant to be only for poetry, for creative writing as such, but that was the first genre we wanted to look into, because it's quite a big market of 8 to 12% people in the world. In the States, it's like 12% of people. It's generally Gen Z thing, and there is not, and there is quite a nice amount of people that write poetry in that age. They want to get it printed and sold. So it's just kind of the first niche we looked into before, so we can try all the IT and all the tech behind it before we expand into other creative genres.
Amazing. Well, regarding digitalization, one would say that in the 21st century, everything is already digital, and when our business is actually to help companies do the software, run the software in a more efficient way. And I mean, most of the cases, everyone tells us, well, we have been there already and we have everything ready. So how come that this is actually not happening within this field? Is it because the industry itself, or because the tool chain and the whole workflow is not integrated?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one part of the problem is that it's an industry that's not looked at very much from technological point of view. So like, book industry is considered to be something like old-fashioned books get printed and, sold in the bookstores. So there is not much focus on the area as such, even though, as I said, it's $142 billion market every year. So it's a huge market, but for some reason also for many investors or technology companies, it's just kind of like considered to be like, this industry of the past that kind of is functioning by itself and doesn't need any improvement. And at the same time, I think the second reason is that it's usually with self-publishing, it's left to individuals to do it on their own. So there is not much help being done to make it much easier for them, because it's kind of like you grow your own garden, own vegetables, and however you do it, we don't care about it. So these could be like two reasons. I just think from the top of my head.
All right, and how about how do you actually make it happen that you, if I understand correctly, you eliminate the shipping of the books by printing closely wherever the book is supposed to be delivered? So how do you do that?
Like right now we're working with a third party that has got printers under them in the US and around the world. So the orders get sent to the printers that they have nearest to the person that purchases the book. In the future, we would like to make a second step in having the printers directly under us globally. And let's say, I don't know, it could be thousands and thousands of printers, so that we could have printers that are not like only in your country or 2-3 printers in your country, but it could be like hundreds of printers, and we could allocate even more a printing house that is like the closest to your house, and being not like 200 kilometers or miles, but like 1 kilometer or mile. So it's actually there is a nice possibility that bookstores as such would like be abolished or would cease to exist, because like if you could buy any book and only then it gets printed, there is no reason for bookstores that you would go to a bookstore and buy a book. So I think because one thing that talks in our favor of what we're doing is that there is this big climate change, and the trend is to more and more radical. So if you look at the fact that we have actually so many bookstores that store books that then get thrown out, or they end up on landfills, and it's not ecologically efficient with the shipping and all that, then this could be a nice model of how to kind of make books more climate appealing.
Awesome. And tell me something about that. That must be quite technologically challenging, actually, to integrate all the steps within the process and do that on a global scale. That has to be a quite complicated solution, actually.
Definitely, and that's what we're also very happy for, of course, partnering with CodeNOW. It's hasn't been an easy task, as you know. It seems simple. The solution is very simple. It's very quick in your mobile, and you can do it. But then you have all the issues with printers setting the book right, that it gets printed. Right now, we have 9,000 books printed in the U.S., and we haven't seen even one of the books in the sense there is no back office that we would have in Prague. So it all gets printed in such a high quality, and the configurator and all the technical system works in a way and logistics that actually it from the moment you do it in your mobile, it gets sent to the printers and everything kind of works perfectly. And we have no complaints over quality of the books, and they're very nice. So that has been very difficult to set it up right. And one of the other issues that we tackled quite extensively was the issue with taxing, because it's not that easy to find the right payment gate and the way how to deal with taxes, especially if it's a physical product and you're shipping globally. It's totally different than if you have a digital product, because like it falls under different taxation. So we thought of using one of the very famous e-shops, having it integrated into our platform at first, where we found out that actually the platform, eShop platform, doesn't cooperate with the payment gate that deals with the taxes, and so we have to come up with a totally different solution. So I think that has been, at least for me, one of the interesting parts of it, that you wouldn't think of like taxes as being an issue, or having a payment gate that deals with the taxes. But it's great that we managed to find the solution, because otherwise we would have to have 30, 50 or more people hired on a payroll just to deal with the taxes in the States or globally. So it's been
I can imagine that's the great difference between being fully digital and actually incorporating the physical product into the game. Yeah,
exactly. And I think like if you do any business now and in the future, you're trying to decrease the recurring costs as much as possible, because you have to invest so much money into technology, AI, and being competitive. So anything that helps you be more efficient, digitalized, optimized, AI'd, the better.
AI, it took 15 minutes till we got to the AI. No,
it's the buzzword of these days.
Yeah, I guess it's everywhere. So maybe tell me one thing. So you have been developing the solution internally, or have you been coordinating multiple vendors that were participating on the individual parts of the solution?
We chose to go with different vendors for exactly different parts of the solution. I personally like doing that, because you rarely have an IT team that is specialized in all the areas that you need to have done, and it's good to have teams that have experience with something similar in the past. So being a startup, you don't have much time to risk or to kind of experience around if something works or doesn't work. So that's why I kind of took the best kind of partners I saw to develop the platform, or to provide different parts of it. And also I like the fact that you also had a similar or a previous experience in books and books publishing, and members of your team also, actually maybe accidentally, but were also able to help with typography and configuration into print. So it's been a great collaboration.
Yeah, well, just for the listeners, I guess that there is a mobile app, there is a web application, so some digital content editation and creation. Then there is the preview of the books, and then actually shipping to the printers, all the money and commercials part of that. And last but not least, quite a lot of logistics involved, I would say. Yeah.
And it's beautiful, because it's running on its own. In the sense, of course, you need people to take care of the IT to function, but otherwise, it's a system that's functioning on its own accord, which is something that I love running a startup. I also have a company, and also do some events, but on startup, if you have a technological solution that works, it's easy to scale, and it doesn't require hiring a huge staff of people just taking care of it.
Well, talking about scaling, how do you cope with the load? Do you have a constant load of the people coming in, or do you have some seasonal peaks maybe when people are writing more than some other parts of the year?
Right. Yeah, I think we notice but it's classic with any business. Around Christmas and New Year and January, people get into it. In January, it works with gym. You want to start training. So with writing, you want to we have challenges that this year is going to be better. You're going to write your book and get published. So that works also in January. And then in times off-peak times, so during summer, for example, and holidays as such, when people have more time to go write and connect, that's when they enjoy. The cool thing is it's also a platform to connect between people, and a bit more on a personal level, because you're basically like, as there is poetry right now at the moment, there are like 4 million something like, poems written on the platform, and we're going to extend like beyond poetry. But as there is poetry right now, it's something that's very personal and creative. So and it's not superficial. So that's something that the young generation, Gen Z especially, I like them in that regard, because they're less into bullshit and more into authentic stuff, because like, we're the generation kind of like, brought up on bullshit, believing that we're going to run the world once we're going to be 30 years old or something. So they're less prone to believe this kind of, fairy tales. So they're more into like authentic expression and stuff like that. So I enjoy that, and also because it's like cross generational and cross gender everything, because like we visit people from all around the world, and they connect based on what they write, what they express. So you can have a case of a young American guy, 16 years old or 18 years old, like, getting drunk for the first time, or, in love for the first time, connecting with a Japanese elder that kind of like, reacts to him, that he knows the feeling, and, he's been there too when he was young and beautiful. So it's there is this kind of like, it's not mystical, but there is kind of like deeper element of human relations that I enjoy what's going on there. And they're like so far, it's not based on that much it's not based on the things that are really attractive these days, like really quick videos, really easy message, getting to
flashy content.
Yeah. Even though it's like, it's always difficult to like balance between something what you want and what the market wants, because like social networks, they're basically just copying each other. They have been always, and they are always. So stories and and all that. And if you don't copy what the others are doing, you're kind of like not the social like platform that is kind of like cool and trendy. So it's been sometimes a difficult kind of balance between these two. At the same time, if you would want to be like Facebook or Instagram, it's something that we don't realize as Europeans, I think, or just people in general. It's really costly to run on servers, everything like and development, like what Facebook has, or Instagram or TikTok. I'm not sure how many people they have, and like staff and IT, but it's it's huge teams, so it's very expensive, and it's the model how it can be all running from is ads, of course, and then selling of data. That's the basic 2 big revenue streams you have running a social network. And if you don't want to go that way, which we don't want to go that way, the options are kind of limited, but they're possible. So we're basing it on making money from people that can have their books printed and sold very cheaply. It costs like $12 to self-publish, for example, not like $5,000 to $15,000. So the business model we have is kind of something that we're not ashamed of. It's not selling data. It's not kind of like selling ad space, but of course the more challenging. So the IT solution, for example, that we came up with the publishing, it was not easy. It would have been easier just to like raise huge money, ad revenue from ads, sell data, and kind of like do the usual stuff.
Well, maybe I will use this opportunity to ask one question, and that is the relation of, you're talking about operational excellence and actually having your OPEXs under control, sort of, because I guess that from the scaling strategy point of view, it's not exactly a blitz scaling what you're doing. So then maybe when did you realize that CodeNOW can actually help you move your solution from one cloud provider to another, and therefore maybe achieve a better negotiations position towards the hyperscalers, or maybe even maybe migrate?
Well, one of the consideration was like OPEX as such, because like I didn't want to hire one or more people just to take care of this, but at the same time it was it's been a solution that's been working for us kind of like very effectively. What I'm like saying usually at some like events, like if you run a startup, it's still a business, and it has to be functioning as a business, like with all the operations, invoicing, integrations, everything. So if you scale up too fast and you just go on the hype, and you just want to sell as soon as possible, exit as soon as possible, and buy the villa, dog that you want or whatever gets you excited, then those startups are rarely functioning after the exit or once they're out, because basically it's just kind of made up something that is fluffy and colorful and nice, but once you dig into it, it's actually not functioning business. It doesn't have like proper operations and revenue streams and everything. So my approach has been always kind of, because I'm not sure if there is any deeper meaning to me being like a bull or kind of like in zodiac signs, but it really befits me that I like even if it's true or not, but I like building things from scratch with like solid foundations and like do all the dirt like groundwork and kind of like set the groundwork right, because that's necessary if you want to have your business running for more than 1 or 2 years. Like it's gonna. So that's how also that's also why I went for CodeNOW solution, because I thought it to be a long-term partnership, which it has proved to be.
Well, thank you for that. And I don't know, there is a zillion questions that just pop up my mind. I mean, you being founder and raising capital, being European, it's not exactly easy. So I guess that making a business model that is trying to be profitable at least, getting close to black zero is probably essential from this perspective. And maybe second question is, how do you cope with the thing of, personally for me, it's quite frustrating that you always read just about the success stories. And everything seems that everyone is just starting startups and it just works and it sells and it scales and everything is great and bright. But on the other hand, the daily routine is really like difficult and nobody wants to give you money and most of the startups actually bankrupt. But that's very little talked about, I would say.
Definitely. I mean, we achieved like black numbers, so actually we're self-sufficient, which I think is great. And I always try to like go that way. I don't like the model of startup that basically are in red numbers 5-10 years and they just raise money and are always just like burning money, not making money, or just very little. I mean, it's one strategy, but I think it's the chance of you making it is very low, because you have to just expand. Everything has to be perfectly functioning as you want it, and then you can start making money from red numbers into black into 5-10 years, and you have to have someone that constantly funds you and kind of like believes you that one day you will be the success. But otherwise, it's like very risky model. So we achieved the black numbers, but the raising of capital is not an easy thing, especially in Central Europe, but in Europe as such. You can see it on the AI investments. We've not been only like lagging behind the US, we're actually going contra the ratio of Europe vis-a-vis the States, and I think 2 times worse than other areas of investment. So the AIs we're even more behind AIs or investments into AI startups than the US is, and even more than if it were some other technology like in the past, like NFT or something, or blockchain. So basically, it's for startups. I think you have like either like you have 2 options, being from Europe or like even from Central Europe. One option is to really scale really fast and really big, which is very difficult because usually the investors that give you money, or angel investors, or even like VCs, they don't have the really big connections to the big VCs in the States, and in the States, because it's all about money, like bottom line. If they have so much money to invest, the VC funds or investors, and 1% or 5% is just like no risk for them. They're willing to invest much more money into you and kind of like breathe down your neck much less and let you live and fulfill your dream. So And basically, you have a big idea. They like the idea. Okay, it's got like solid possibility to win. I trust you. I give you money, and you can like really go big. So you can make this like, fairy tale story. And we had also some Czech startups that have made the story. Also Muse lately. I don't know Richard Walter, but also before like Product Board and all that. There are actually cases that had a very quick US VC connection. So they were very quickly in the States, or they were raising very quickly in the States. So they are the ones that got were smart in the sense they got to the place where the money is, and that's where they could scale. But it's of course it's not easy. You have to relocate to the States, and it's a country of opportunity. But at the same time, without networking connections, you're nobody. So and it's very easy, difficult, I think, for a person just to arrive as an immigrant and talk to Horowitz and all these guys as friends. So that's the first option. How you can go as a European startup. Because as a startup, you need money really fast and really quick. If you have any idea, it's not as ingenious that no one else ever, no one's got in the world. And you could have a runway of 6 months before someone else starts doing it, I think, or I don't know, just making up the number. But very little time before someone gets the idea. So, and then it's all about who's raising more capital faster and how much you can expand faster to the markets. And you have a Czech Liftago provider, but who knows Liftago in the States or in Singapore or Japan? Nobody. They know Uber because Uber was able to raise big amounts of cash very quickly, and they could dominate the markets and kind of be the first cool brand, and then anyone who comes later is kind of not attractive, like IQOS. Then you have some other cigarettes, but you don't know their name because IQOS was rolling out with big money and just heavy marketing. So that's the ideal option for startups. But if you don't have that option, or it's proving difficult, then I think the option is to really not go into burning the money that you raise very quickly and trying to have this amazing story, but to try to get to black numbers as soon as possible, withstand the worst times, and then kind of look for investments, have the sale kind of ready for the big win, meaning when an investor or a VC comes, or you approach them and they see the potential of your idea. And basically just go a bit slower. Hope that your competitor will not raise money more quickly and dominate the world before that happens, or at least you can try to attain regional dominance, which also kind of pays off, because once the bigger competitor wants to go into your region or your market, you can have some nice exit that you kind of sell your business or your customers to that bigger partner. So I think those are the two options you can have as a startup. And of course, the first option is much more cool and kind of that's the startup story. But it's very risky. Very few attain it. And it sometimes also falls on the part that we talked before, that you kind of raise money, classical hire people, do everything, which you're actually doing right. But then if you just hype up the numbers and you don't have properly functioning business, if you don't get investments very quickly in the first model, then the other option, you have the second one, to attain black numbers and to kind of be self-sufficient. But you can be self-sufficient in that scenario only if you really actually paid attention to having a viable business model and not being on the hype. And it's true, as you say, that there is this big hype about a startup and being very quick and very successful. But I think 95%, I think, or even more, if you survive, that's great. If you survive as a startup or as a company, that's great by itself. You already beat the odds and statistics, and then it's still, I think 95% of that is just artisan work. It's daily routine. Sometimes fun, sometimes not fun. But that's something I think that people should know once they go into the startup area or want to have a startup, I think it's great to have a startup, but you have to be able to dedicate your time to most of the time just raise money. So you're basically you're begging or you're arguing, but still you're asking someone for their money. So it's not nice psychologically, because like, you know, you would rather be the one giving money and not like, you know, arguing for money. So you have to get prepared for that, and at the same time be prepared for long run. I mean, you can think it's going to be great after 1-2 years, but be prepared. It could take 5, 10, 15 years of your life. I mean, you know, that's the reality.
I remember you was going through some tough times as well, you know, because there was COVID and there was this thing with energy and the whole actually inflation stuff in Europe, you know, so it was quite difficult times. So have you been expecting any dramatic situations in terms of I need to reduce my costs quickly, otherwise we will go bankrupt and I will lose all the time and investment already being made? Have there been such moments?
Well, fortunately, because I've been doing business for 14 years, since 2010, I know how it's very easy to like kind of like burn money. So even though I got like investment quite nice, like as COVID started, I was like very strict on like employee numbers, like, you know, going to the minimum number, and then there were some occasions when I had some money that I could invest into IT development, and it was the area of NFTs. If you remember that, what that stands for. I'm wondering if people will know what NFT is like 5-10 years. You know, maybe, you know, young generation, it's going to be something like LCD or like, you know, 3.5 floppy disk or however you call it, you know. So, but NFTs and one person who is kind of like experienced startup person, he also advised me like, you know, put the money you have into development of NFTs, because that's going to be like, you know, that's the cool technology that investors are going to love to invest in. And I'm very happy that I didn't choose to go into the NFT development, because that would be like totally non-functional business model at this time, which is also difficult for startups, because you have to actually not only think about what the market is prone to when it comes to the latest trends like AIs, but also to what the investors and the VCs will want to invest in a few years' time, and you have no idea. So if you, for example, if you put all the money before into NFTs, now is and no thing. If you know, at the same time, if you have something that is in AI, most likely it's going to be a nice thing, but you have to hope that AI is going to be the big thing also in 3-5 years' time. If not, you know, bad choice of technology focus. So that's also, I think, that makes it tough for startups. Sometimes it's just like you being smart. Sometimes it's just coincidence, because like, you know, what do you know how it's going to develop?
Well, if you want to survive on the longer time, I guess you have to predict the fact that VC's focus will swing somewhere else. And what was sexy last year is probably not going to be interesting next year. Don't want to get too technical, but I guess that has some impact into solution architecture and of the technological background, so you can actually adapt to the situation very quickly.
Definitely. And I think investors will have to kind of like, you know, reevaluate where they invest, because you have all these like AI startups, you know, and things, and basically like I think majority of them, again 90-95%, is basically just an API connection to ChatGPT, or, you know, it's OpenAI. It's not that they develop an AI. It's just like, you know, they're using some processing model with API, which is very easy integration, and you already are AI startup. But what's going to be interesting are those startups that are having more and more user cases of something, and the AI can kind of like learn on based on the user cases, so you can tame the AI fitting the business that you do. So that's, for example, where we come in. Like if we have like 4 million posts, if we had like, I don't know, 500 million or 1 billion of like creative writing posts and books written, the AI that we have could more and more kind of like assist people in writing the genres they do based on what has been like AI'd or analyzed before by AI by us, or the images that they select that go with their writing. So yeah, but it's definitely like with AI, I think you can't go wrong. Like it should be the thing in the next 5-10 years. But it's I wouldn't want to be the VC investor, because like it's so hard, I think, sometimes to know to which extent is the AI integration of a startup something original, or is just like something that anyone can do.
Talking about that, I tend to think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but the core value actually of the content,
Right.
what you are publishing or what your authors are publishing, is about the fact that it's not written by AI, that it's actually authentic and
That's a big issue we've been like dealing with, because you're right, and also like people that write usually don't like AI writing, because they think it's kind of like making it too easy for you, and in a way it is, but at the same time, it is a future that you cannot like omit, that there is no AI on the platform. So what we're trying to do is like to integrate, have also the option of like having it co-written by AI, but it would then be shown in the post and in the books that it was co-written by AI, but more to use AI to give you feedback on what you write, or kind of to advise you how you could change things and kind of like write it better, for it to be more attractive or more appealing or thrilling. So our idea is to kind of have the AI primarily into making you a better author. And kind of like as if you had some old like Douglas Adams, I'm looking at him, or Tolkien, or someone basically standing behind you and like helping you once you write your book, how to actually make it better and how to gain their experiences from writing books into you, that you don't have to write like 50 books before it gets nice. So I think empowering humans to be better authors is the primary things, or the chief thing we want to achieve. And then if someone just wants to write with AI and don't even bother trying, would be also possible, but we want to like flag it or make it shown to other people that it's something that they had some effort in, but not that much.
So have you been actually witnessing that somebody would be exploiting AI in order to, I don't know, maybe increase their sales on your platform or publish more books, and actually gain from the volume, or something like that?
We haven't like fully integrated the AI writing into the platform, because we want to first deal with these kind of like issues with our users and to discuss with them before we introduce these possibilities, but it's going to be big things. You can either like censor people and like have a look at this, or you can leave it up to them, which is something that I prefer. So basically, it's up to the individual not to plagiarize, not to do these things. And if they will be found out by others or the AI, then they will kind of like thrown out from the platform. So I imagine these cases are going to happen more and more. Like but we want to make sure and to kind of like monitor, if possible, if it's been written by AI or not. It's not going to be that easy, because you have OpenAI, you can like find what's been written from like their servers, but there understand like thousands of other like AI tools that are not Google or Apple or Microsoft, which are more difficult to kind of control or to evaluate if it's been written from their platform or not. So I think that's going to be quite a big issue. But it's not only our business. I think like almost any business, schools, universities, high schools are going to have to deal with that, because they.
Enough of AI. So, in general, what are your plans for the rest of the year with Poetizer?
Right.
Are you actually planning any new features, or would you like to actually grow the platform somehow, maybe community?
Yeah. We'd like to grow the community, but extend the platform to, especially when it comes to the IT. So we have we have the groundwork and the main elements kind of program, but it would be great to enable the self-publishing services to everyone in the world, not only people in the States, and also to integrate the AI solutions even more into it. So feedback on your writing, co-writing. Things like that to empower writers, and also to introduce images. So right now you can use the images that we have in the collection, 344 illustrations that you can choose from and just have them in your book. So we would want to bring that AI element into it and have it configured with the printers that you can, based on what you write, an image would be generated and it could be already published into your book. So that option, ebook option, and there are other things that we're looking into. Same as marketing services, that basically authors will have it very easy to have big control and to promote their book globally by themselves.
Talking about the illustrations, I can imagine that actually having, again, original human-driven illustrations is not exactly cheap.
Yeah.
So are you going to be transparent about this picture is cheaper and you can leverage the fact that it was AI generated and I will put it into my book, or this one more expensive but again original?
Well, what we would like to is not that we have the illustration that you can buy, which is right now happening. So we paid authors, graphic people who painted the 344 illustrations. We paid them, and then you kind of buy them from us. With the AI, we would want that to be automatically and for free. So basically, based on what you write, an illustration would be generated. It's not our illustration that you buy, but it's kind of like you write, it's a beautiful day, and my dog is feeling happy, and an image pops up, and you can refresh or choose another one, just AI works. So
burned landscape with blood raining.
Exactly. Whatever gets you happy. So it's more an option that we would leave to the authors, that they would not be buying it, but it would be just kind of automatic generated, and they can choose to have it in their book or not.
Awesome. So tell me, to other fellow startups or those that are actually thinking about starting their own business, what would be the advice, what to focus on most at the very beginning, and how not to actually run out of money after the first race?
Well, I would say be very pessimistic in your projections and base your running costs on those. And at the same time, try to go as big as fast as you can. So it's like business on steroids. So be ready for the ride. Choose where you want to go. And try to focus on as little things as possible. If it's just one thing, I want to get black numbers, or I want to be the best AI startup in this area, or just have very simple goals or visions. It's very easy, and I also did a mistake a little bit, not that much, luckily, but a little bit in the regard. You have so many options what you can do and everything, but I think the bigger art sometimes is to cut the options and really try to focus on just one thing or two things, because it's just so easy to let's do this, let's have a podcast, let's do this, everything. And it's all nice, but then you realize everything is taking time, cost, your headspace, and people's headspace. So basically, just try to kind of focus only on one thing if it's possible, and then I guess if possible, try to have it as a game. It's difficult if there is money involved, but try not to take it too seriously, because if you take it too seriously, you approach it differently. And it's a thing of capital. We're getting back to money again, but for investors that have lots of money, or startups that have money, if both sides approach it hey, there is almost zero chance it's gonna work. I mean, it's a crazy idea that you want to be global and everything. But let's be playful about it. So like, think out of the box, do something different, and things like that, like help a lot, rather than when you're like tight on cash and you're like thinking within the options that you have and it's survival mode. So that's what I would wish more startups to have, like, more money also in that regard, but so that they can be more playful in their strategy, and kind of like, take it as, in bottom line, all our life is like playing on a playground, like, you'll always survive. You always have like a roof under your head, or above your head, or if a tree, if it rains, you'll always have something to eat, so it's not that tough as one thinks, meaning that, like, I have to have this income or this money, otherwise disaster. Like, when I was young and beautiful, I traveled around the world, and I had Kurdiev disease. I didn't know what it was until I started bleeding from my mouth. In New Zealand, I was studying, and I was doing all these manual labor jobs. So I had $5 New Zealand dollars per day for my food. So I had bread, and sometimes I had milk when I was like lucky, and that was for half a year or something. So and then I called my mom, and she asked, and she's a doctor, and she asked, "How are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just don't know. I'm like, brushing my teeth, and there's like blood, but there's nothing wrong with my teeth." And she said, "Well, what's happening? Are you eating like vitamin C?" I was like, "Vitamin C? Like, why?
What is it good for?"
What is it good for? And all that. So she said, "Oh, you have Kurdiev." I said, "What's Kurdiev?" So it's which is kind of cool to have a disease of like sailors, like a few hundred years back, but you survive. Okay, like, eat your cabbage if you're a sailor, like vitamin C or something. But the bottom line is, it's anywhere you will go around the world, you will survive. So that's something that helped me, for example, in life, knowing that even the worst case scenario is not worst case. So you can play around, and even if it doesn't work, at least you played around and you tried, and it's worth it.
Okay, so maybe some final closing thoughts. What I like about you is that basically you're non-technical person, and therefore you are quite focused on the business aspect, of your startup, and treating technology as something that has to be there, but it's not the core thing, right? The core is somewhere else. And I would say that that's my recommendation to all the new startup founders. Don't mistake what is your core business, because I can see that very often people tend to think that the way how I did craft my PHP site is the core business. Well, it's not, right? So that's going to be replaced pretty soon by something. Well, all right. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
And wish you a lot of luck, and hopefully see you again very soon.
Thank you, and thanks for our wonderful cooperation.
Thank you. Bye bye.